Today on City Cast Chicago, this summer I have watched my friends travel around the world to places like Senegal, Vietnam, Brazil. I'm going to keep it real with you. I'm a bit envious, not only watching them take in the culture, the museums, the people, but of course, the food. Luckily, Chicago is home to cuisine and culture from across the globe. So today we're taking a little international food tour without ever leaving the city. It's Wednesday, July 9th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago is talking about. I am joined by friends from the Chicago Tribune award-winning food critic, Louisa Chu. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you, Jacoby.
Always good to see you. We've also got another award-winning food reporter in the building, Ahmed Akbar. Welcome to CityCast Chicago.
Happy to be here for the first time.
There are so many foods from across the globe that you can get in Chicago that make up our culinary scene. And Louise, I want to start with you. Is there a specific dish in a Chicago restaurant that when you take a bite, when you smell it, it just takes you to, I don't know, another city, another country, another continent, perhaps?
I gotta go back to my staple. One of my formative foods is Chinese dumplings, dim sum dumplings specifically, and the specific dish, the dish that turned a young Louisa Chu from being a would-be vegetarian back into a meatitarian was the siu mai, which is the pork dumpling. Typically it's pork and a little bit of shrimp, and my mouth waters just thinking about it, but it's like, it takes me back instantly to like the one time, even though I was born in Hong Kong, when I visited Hong Kong and I ordered so much dim sum that the dim sum lady was like, no more. Tai doa, tell me too much. And I'm like, I am back in my motherland for the first time. But it's like, it takes me to Hong Kong. It takes me to dim sum with my family in Shanghai. It takes me to Canada to visit my cousins in Canada. It's like that for me, that thread, like wherever I am in the world traveling and I have specifically a siu mai dumpling from dim sum. In the city, actually, one of my favorite places is Die Cuisine. One of the chefs and owners used to work for Ming Hin, which is a mini chain in the Chicago area, in the city and suburbs. There's a few different locations, but the main restaurant location they have is in Lincoln Park. It's right on Clark.
Off Diversey and Clark.
Exact, Jacoby, They've got the old school morning discounts. That's like also like the thing too. There's always like a discount time, So yeah, that's one of my favorite places in the city, and then also their outposts in the burbs.
Okay, Die Cuisine, we starting this list off strong. Same question over to you, Ahmed. What is a dish that when you bite into, it takes you somewhere else, and where is your favorite place or places to get it in the city?
So I'm going to follow Louisa's cue here and talk about a childhood food that made me fall in love with, Pakistani food that my parents grew up cooking. I was picky, and that would be tandoori chicken, which is, a good piece of, a good drumstick is something special. And specifically, I think growing up eating it home cooked, it was red, but it was mostly the spice and the moisture was like really something special. And once I like left home and had to go to restaurants, a lot of times it was dry. It was not spicy. It was not, you didn't have a little bit of the, sour lemon flavor. But there's one place here that I really like it, Khan Barbecue, which is on Devon Avenue. I mean, that's a very historical Pakistani area. They do also, the other thing that you can't get at home that you can get at a restaurant is a naan from a tandoor. I mean, I haven't seen them make the naans. I haven't reported on Khan Barbecue, but it looks like it's made out of a tandoor, which is kind of like it's kind of like you smack the naan against the wall of the grill, and, that kind of makes one side kind of a little bit brown and the other side kind of puffs up, and it's slathered in butter. And, when you go there, it's like a real family vibe. It really feels like you're in a Pakistani grilling restaurant. I think our grilled meats are probably my favorite thing of Pakistani cuisine. A lot of people think about biryani, the tikka masalas, saag, like these things that we share with North Indians. But for me, I think my favorite thing from Pakistani food is grilled meats. And that's something that you can't find at every restaurant. They specialize in that at Khan Barbecue. And and they have some other stuff too, like goat chops, which is something that I haven't eaten frequently. I'm more of a lamb chop family. You know what it takes me back to also is those childhood basements where we would have it with a Coke. That's, I think, the secret combo that is you only really have in the basements of the family parties.
I love that both of y'all took that first question and you weren't just like transported to another place, but you were transported to another place and time, back to your childhood. And that's one of the beautiful things I love when I'm talking about Chicago food. So many of my favorite dishes just take me back to, like you said, to a basement, to a house party, to a Friday in which we finally like wore my mother down and she wasn't going to cook and she was going to order that night. And so I love how special those meals and those dishes were for you. Where's a place you would go in the city where you could merch that the food is authentic in taste, maybe not exact, but as if you were getting it on a trip abroad?
These days, when it comes to food, we kind of like to talk about maybe traditional as opposed to maybe authentic. Authenticity sometimes has a bit of a loaded meaning, because those traditions change. What might have been considered like, authentic at one particular time and place, is kind of taken as like this unchanging code, this unchanging rules, and so we kind of like to talk, I think, maybe more about tradition than authenticity.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think traditional has been a more effective word. I mean, maybe the next generation of food writers will feel that that has its problems too. But what's nice about tradition is that we say this in our own families. A tradition could be a generation old. So connecting it back to tandoori chicken is not a very old recipe. It's about 100 years old and it's from a certain region. And at a time, it was considered an innovative thing. You know what I mean? Like the bright red, I'm sure like in the, British colonial era, that was like a very unusual thing that they were doing. But it's become, we could say it's traditional cooking at this point for us because a few generations have eaten it.
In the same vein that you all are making, when we say authentic, it puts a box often on a people, on a region, whereas tradition opens it up to family restaurant, to different sects, to different groups of people and how they all had their contribution to a regional or a national food or dish or style. Let's say someone wants to feel like they're traveling to another place. They want to taste traditional dishes where people are genuine, the service is good. What are some places from around the world that you'd put on your list?
For me, one of the places that's generally speaking a really good center to find that now are these big grocery store food courts. And for example, Seafood City's food court, which is primarily Filipino food. It's an Asian market focused on Filipino food. And there was a time that Filipino food was kind of hard to find other than like the steam table buffets. When I had a chance to visit the Philippines as a guest of like from the Filipino government, which was amazing. And I came back and I was like, where's the fresh calamansi? Where's the fresh, these dishes? And then when Seafood City opened, within the last 10 years now, and I found all of these dishes and the means with which to make them, I was just blown away. And one of the big things is fried seafood. They have one of the services that a few different markets have where you can go and choose your fish. They will clean it. They will cook it, including frying. When I was living and working as a cook in Paris, these tiny little storefronts would do the same thing, but they would sell the fish fried packaged, and I just thought, this is an amazing innovation, that you can have this traditionally prepared, Filipino fish, like the milkfish, and prepared it the same way that a Filipino auntie or uncle would make it if I was lucky enough to be invited to their home to have it, but they were clean it and cook it and fry it there for you. I'm like, that's amazing. And then like the breakfast, don't get me started about Filipino breakfasts, like the most amazing garlic fried rice is like the base. I could have that with everything. As being a rice eater, my mouth is watering. Of course, a fried egg, and then like usually, a meat of some kind. So we have a few different places, like the Filipino markets, the Korean markets, the Chinese markets, where they have those attached food halls, like 88 Marketplace for Chinatown or just outside of Chinatown. Like a great entree into a variety of different foods and then ingredients with which you can make them yourself, possibly.
The guy at Seafood City, first time going there, he's like, do you want a fish? Do you want, like, I'll make this fish for you. And I was like, actually, I just ate, so I'm not hungry. But like, if I come back, like, how do I know? He's like, I got you. Like, I'll tell you which ones are fresh. Like, I will select them for you. Like, they were very warm and welcoming. It was such a, I'm sure a lot of people don't take him up on that. So the fact that he was like so into it and like, I could do this any way you want. Like, talk to me. That's like such an amazing experience. And I hope to do it soon.
Ahmed, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that as well. A spot that does maybe traditional cuisine from a country around the world very well in the city.
So I live in Pilsen, and I am a walker, so I end up going to a lot of places. And probably my favorite food city outside of the U.S. that's not Pakistan, I'm not going to put Pakistan on the list because I'm biased, is Mexico City. There's a very almost like Instagram famous dish from a place called Contramar, which is like a very kind of, it's an ambiance-y, like nice restaurant where they split a whole fish in two. People take Instagram photos of this one dish, which is a pescado ataya with red and green salsa on both sides. There's like a smoky red and a herbaceous green on the other side. So it's like, has like a really beautiful look. And I take people there all the time and they enjoy it. Here in Chicago, there's a place called Marisco's San Pedro in Pilsen on 18th Street in Talia Hall. It's been here for about a year. And I was very surprised because I hadn't seen that dish on other menus. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I had only ever seen it at Contramar. And they're doing a version with dorade, which is more of a French fish. One of the chefs, Oliver Poilevi, is French. So they are doing like a slightly, it's not at all the same, but you get the feeling, right, of Contramar, because not only is there that at Contramar, you're also going to get these really unique tostadas with raw fish on it. And, Marisco San Pedro's has very innovative and interesting ceviches and aguachiles and tostadas that, like, even though the menu is completely unique to Chicago and has like a lot of seasonal elements as well, like at Marisco San Pedro's, you will get that feeling of like a distant relative of Contramar. Like they're completely doing their own thing, but you feel like, oh, this is like, I want to take everyone here the way I want to take everyone to Contramar.
Is there a restaurant that we're not just talking about the cuisine itself, but the music, the vibe of the place, all of it contributes to transporting you from a neighborhood in Chicago to somewhere else?
I wanted to also follow up that in Pilsen, 18th Street, of course, like Marisco's is a fine dining place, but you got the street taco, widest variety of street tacos. Every place has its own different style, and everyone's going to prefer their tacos from a different place, much like, street food or taquerias in Mexico City. So, you're going to find there's Atotonilco where like they're like the tortilla, like the meat is a lot more crispy. There's Ruby's where like you have the massive Guerrero style, blue corn tortillas that they hand make with huitlacoche and this very amazing usage of cheese. If I wanted like a small street taco style, I might go to Coyotes. So like that feeling of walking into a different taqueria and figuring out like, what's the taco I get from this place? Like that's again, transporting me to Mexico City. And I think it's important to say because that's the historical, obviously, element. Whereas like Marisco San Pedro's is a newer place and is really an interesting place worth talking about. But of course, like the taquerias of 18th Street are giving us Jalisco, Guerrero, Mexico City, like all these different regions of Mexico. So you get to really explore a lot of stuff. And I will say that I have a Mexican friend who said he only grew up in Mexican areas of California. I was so intimidated to take him around eating around here. And he went, I think this is more traditional.
I've heard more than a dozen Chicagoans put Chicago's tacos, Mexican, Central American food up against other states, other cities with overwhelming confidence, with no fear that like outside of, Mexico, no one's touching us. Louisa, what about you? Is there a place that does not just the food, but also the ambiance very well?
A few years ago, we did a guide to all of the restaurants in the area that I call New Koreatown. Because Korean food is also, as a Chinese person, it pains me to say that like Korean food and Filipino food right now is like way cooler in Chicago, and there's this there is this one place called the signage, all of that was only in Korean, but now they have their like one Google entry called Nangman Pocha in Glenview. And it's like what I imagine if you pulled into a Korean truck stop and like off in some little town, like not in Seoul, which haven't visited yet, but obsessed with it and imagine. But if like you were on the countryside and it was like this little storefront with all the little booths and the buttons where you can press to call the server, and a server comes over and they have what I like to call the OG KFC, the original Korean fried chicken, because it's not like the batter dip deep fried, but it's just like, marinated and then fried, skin fried. So it's like you get that flash fry and you order it. And like, of course, they come over with like the, loosey-goosey plastic gloves and just like totally tear it apart and everything in front of you until like perfectly, like, here's your wing, here's your leg, here's your, breast, all that and everything, with like a little side of like fried garlic, not like fancy fermented garlic or anything. It's just like fried whole cloves of garlic, but soft. Like, so it's perfectly sweet. And like a few little pickles. Again, my mouth just waters thinking about it. And like open late, like I used to drive that stretch and like they're open like the oddest hours and like not fancy at all. And just sort of the place that exists unobserved, the sort of place that exists for itself and for people who are just looking for that kind of immersive experience. And I just loved that place, and I kind of almost don't want to go back because of the first time I went, it just sort of captured such a moment, that liminal kind of feeling, that nighttime kind of feeling, and I want that to sort of exist in my memory.
From East Africa, Ethiopian food. Obviously, you have Demira in Uptown. I've gone a few times, and just the process of sitting down and sort of group eating, right? The injera, like the different lamb, the vegetables, the corn is always so damn good every time you go. What are some international cuisines that Chicago just does right? And which specific neighborhoods can you go to experience it, Louisa? Obviously, we are a very segregated melting pot, so I don't know if melting pot is the right term, right? Maybe like a hot pot, all of our little things separated before they go in. But like Chicago is made up of so many different immigrant communities, so many different cultures make up our city. And as a result, what do you think are some of the, like, our Chicago signature international cuisines?
So Chicago's had a long history of immigrant cuisine. And I think that one of the ones that we get really right that has become so, like, I think kind of ingrained in Chicago culture is Polish food, like to the point where like, our punchki days have become this cultural event along, like the stretches of Polish food in like along Milwaukee Avenue. And again, going back to, some of the markets where you can get sausages and pickles. And like one of my favorites is kind of like off the beaten path a little bit is Laramie Bakery.
Yep. We went there for our Punchki episode.
So you already know that like that is such a part of the neighborhood. It's got like this totally double, triple storefronts where they've got like the house-made sausages, cured meats in the back. They make their punchki year-round. The ones that are, my favorite are the rose petal jam and the dried plum. And I feel like sometimes, as much as we love like the bigger, bolder flavors, that's become so ingrained as a part of Chicago culture. Yet still, because of our like constantly kind of changing immigrant neighbors coming in, especially with like, grandmas and grandpas who want to cook meals for the grandkids, like you've got great markets that have stuff that's imported directly. Like when I walk into Laramie, that combination of the smell of cured meat and freshly fried punchki, and like, of course, if I get a good pickle, it's like that kind of smell, that aroma, just really kind of like, because I grew up actually in a predominantly Polish and Mexican neighborhood on the northwest side of Chicago. So, so those flavors are always kind of like combined to me.
Our social media manager, Rick Holmes, just last month pulled up on Pierogi Kitchen Chicago and met with the owners and chefs there. And I really want to try their brisket pierogi, 14-hour smoked brisket. Like I don't need to say one. We just did a barbecue episode. I'm mad I missed this one. We have done episodes about Yatskovo, now known as Avondale, to Chicagoans and, formerly largely Polish community. We've done Pączki Day episodes. And even as such, we've seen, Polish Mexican restaurants. We've seen Polish Korean restaurants, I think like Kimski. And so it's also been something that we've seen fused in Chicago's culture with others over the generations.
I struggle to speak authoritatively about Chicago in that way, but I will say that the city I've lived in Philly, lived in New York, I've lived in Boston. This is the first city where I have places where I really crave Italian ice and Italian subs. I've tried them before and I was like, okay, I guess. I don't eat pork, so like it's makes sense that maybe like I might not like the subs, but even Italian ice, I was like, never. Here, there's like Italian ice places that truly like transform my life. So I just want to like Mario's is the one that really, has changed my entire view on Italian ice. So I can't speak authoritatively on how authentic or traditional that is, Italian American, but man, I was a skeptic. I would not always go out for it. Like I would not choose it. Here I'm choosing it very frequently because the quality of the subs.
Yeah, we even did an Italian ice episode. Prime hater. I was like, I don't remember it being that good. This is the only time I'm coming this summer. I was lying. I was fronting. I went back about 3-4 more times. My girlfriend now gets maybe her eyebrows done like right across the street. I need you to stop at Mario's on the way back. But if you want a good, maybe I just tried Bronzeville hoagies and panini, and they use largely turkey products. And so
thank you.
You're looking for that good Italian sub, but with the focus on the turkey. And then I also like Mr. Sub out in Oak Park. Nice, good Sammy worth the trip up 290. Worth that trip up 290. What are can you think of some other international cuisines that maybe not only does Chicago do well, but is very unique to Chicago that maybe we put a fusion on it, on a spin on it? I think of like Caribbean food. When people talk about maybe the hot spot for Caribbean food in the country, they may look to New York first, but like Chicago is also synonymous with Caribbean jerk food.
I mean, a discovery again that Ahmed, like we kind of like our paths sort of cross in this food space. The corned beef hideout that does a jerk corned beef sandwich. I was not understanding. I was like, oh, okay, maybe they jerk the corned beef before they cook it. I had that sandwich and I was like, again, as a half Shanghainese person, I love spicy food. I was eating the sandwich and I was like, oh,
jerk
this is
mustard
spicy.
Too?
This is spicy. She jerks the beef, has a jerk spread on there. It is a mountain of beautifully sliced corned beef, beautifully cooked, beautifully sliced. India Jenkins is the chef and the owner. And she, decided she was going to fuse the cultures of jerk foods and corned beef. And they meld together so beautifully into this like radiantly spicy, meaty, glorious sandwich. And talk about like unlike any other place in the world. In Romeoville, in this residential complex, in like their community center, she's got a sandwich stand in there. And so you've got the seating in the inside or the seating on the outside. And you're like, and it overlooks this arts center where Ahmed happens to go like every week out of the. I'm like, what?
But there's this Caribbean, Irish, Jewish sandwich just hiding in plain sight.
In Romeoville, which also happens to be home of some of the best mangoes that Ahmed wrote about in the country. And so I'm like, I don't know what's happening here, but it's like there's something happening, like when different, like I think food, cultures, spirits, just kind of like, we just kind of find each other. And then like they happen to sort of converge in that spot. So yeah, so the corned beef hideout, her sandwich is called That Jerk. And I was like, this is amazing. This is really amazing. It's just like this, again, this like cultural marvel that only exists like in our area, which I just absolutely love.
100%. Makes me think of, in some ways, the Jollof pizza I had at Novel Pizza last month in this sort of Ghanaian, Filipino group coming together to create this best of both worlds pizza. It was so damn good.
And Novel Pizza, it's Italian and Mexican too.
Right.
Because there's Mexican owners and it's Italian pizza. So it's like, it's like a lot of stuff coming together in that spot.
Which cuisines do you think Chicago has done a good job of putting its unique spin on and representing it in a way that only the Chi could?
This might be a little bit to the side. Let me know.
No, come on.
I think the thing that shocked me the most coming here, growing up in Michigan, growing up in a mosque where I ate bean pie, which is like a very historically Black Muslim dish.
Yes.
I thought that a lot of the history of Black Muslims, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, all these guys, Michigan. I came here and everyone was like, bean pie is Chicago. And I was like,
it's
okay,
79th Street, 75th
That's right, of course. And I guess vaguely knew that like a lot of those important, leaders of Muslim Americans from the Black community were in Chicago, but I didn't realize like apparently like the history was, it's true that a lot of them were in Michigan and bean pie might have been kind of served when they were all living in Michigan, specifically Elijah Muhammad. But when they moved to Chicago, that's when it really like popped off and went national. And, I've looked for bean pie again in all those places, Philly, New York. Here I found like 3 or 4 places and, they're not like all super well known. They're kind of known through word of mouth. Obviously the very famous one is Supreme Bean Pie. Imani's, who Louisa has written about, is a bigger one. But there's also like Paradise Bean Pie, which is another one that is kind of like reopening, and a few others. But like the bean pie passion is so strong still here, and that's so awesome for me because it's like I get to try different versions and like find one that's closest to those childhood memories again of like the aunties who would bake it and bring it to my mosque. That was like a very formative culinary experience of like experiencing like Black Southern food, and it was shared with a lot of love. And that story about how bean pie was like about health, and it was about changing the diet of African Americans. Like it was served with like a side of politics, right? Like I learned a lot about that culture through that food item. And so coming here and seeing all the different people who are trying their own takes on it was like, wow, Chicago really is the Mecca.
Y'all, we have so many amazing places to take people in and around the world without ever leaving their city. And I just want y'all to know we appreciate y'all over here at CityCast Chicago. From the Tribune, food critic Louisa Chu, thank you for making time for us, my friend.
Thank you so much, Jacoby. Love being here.
And to our new friend, hopefully this isn't the last time we get your voice on the podcast, Ahmed Ali Akbar, thank you for making time for us.
Thank you so much, Jacoby.
I want to put y'all on a great new play opening up in Edgewater at the Red Twist Theater tomorrow night. It's called Big Time Toppers. Listen to this description. After a juggling trick goes horrifically awry, aspiring professional clowns Harlow and Stubbs must find a way to treat the severe wounds they've accidentally inflicted on each other before the most important audition of their fledgling careers. I don't know about y'all, but I'm sold. And shout out to one of my homies in the show, Jamak. It closes on July 26th, so we got a small window to get in, get out. I'm going to drop a link in the show notes. As always, we appreciate you for listening, reading, making time for us, sharing us with your friends and your family. It means the world to us. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. I mean, you don't have to join, but it make me real, real happy if you did. Peace.